Welcome aboard once again to Train Tuesday. I'm your host, Jim Wiggin, and I hope you guys are having a marvelous afternoon, fantastic evening, and so glad that you could join us. Let me take a look over here in Internet Train Land, see who's joining us tonight. I've got David, I've got Angela, I've got Canadian Locomotive Logistics, very cool name. Zach Malcolm saying, "Sup, Jim?" Let's see, I've got Robert, I've got Cody, I've got Abel, Derek Glass is in the house. I got Harold, Steve, Tim, Ben, Matt. Hey, great to have you guys on board tonight. Really looking forward to showing you everything that I've got here for you today. We're going to be talking a little bit Genesis. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Ready to Roll. But if you're an HO scale operator, I'm sure I'm going to have something here tonight you're going to want to look at. Now, just to clarify, the end of the month, you've got till the 28th to pre-order some of the items that we're going to be showing to you tonight. And then I've also got to surprise some things that are in your hobby shops right now and things that will be on their way to the hobby shops very soon. So we're getting some great stuff coming in, and I know you guys are probably looking forward to a lot of these things. So 6 axles, 4 axles, whatever you're looking for, we're going to talk about it tonight. So let's see who else we've got on board with us tonight. We've got Keenan, we've got John, Gary, we've got Hybrid Hobby, we've got Mark, Alex, Kyle, Austin, Matthew. Looks like a full house here tonight. So go ahead, let's do what we always do. Let's get comfortable at our workbench or our workstation, put the hobby knife down, grab the beverage of your choice, and let's get started with Train Tuesday. So we're talking Genesis first, and we're going to be talking about SD45-2s. Now, the SD45-2s in the Genesis line, we've had this model for a number of years, but it's still a very popular model. And we still keep finding old favorites as far as paint schemes that you guys keep requesting, as well as some new ones. And take a look at this. This is the Santa Fe 1970s, early to mid 1970s paint scheme. Now, some guys call it the pinstripe, some guys call it the billboard, whatever you call it. I think it's one of the more classy paint schemes that Santa Fe had. This was, of course, before they went to the yellow and blue war bonnet paint scheme. But really, this was a really neat paint scheme. And we haven't done this in this model before. In fact, in the past, we have offered it as Santa Fe. But here's the release from July of 2019, and this is a much more modern version of it. This would be characteristic of a Santa Fe locomotive, late 80s, early 90s, and still a striking paint scheme. But now we're going to offer these as they appeared on the property in 1972 to 1974, brand new from EMD. And really, really cool model. So you guys in the Santa Fe era that are modeling early 1970s, a lot of these lasted in this paint right up into the 80s, albeit somewhat weathered, but really were a classy paint scheme. One of my favorite paint schemes, actually. I blame Emery Goulash for my love affair for this pinstripe paint scheme. And if you're a Santa Fe fan, I hope you know who Emery Goulash was. So we're doing some Prime for Grime as well. These are former CSX locomotives, and these are really great for anybody that's modeling 1990s into the early 2000s. These are going to look phenomenal when they're done. We're starting to try some new techniques in our Prime for Grime, and these are going to look like the weather-beaten veterans that they are. Now, these here, like I said, these are former CSX models or former CSX locomotives. These are Helm Atlantic leasing. So the great thing about these, they'll fit anywhere on your layout. It doesn't matter what road you're modeling. As long as you're doing something in the late 90s, early 2000s, and you want some interesting power that's got some really cool lineage to it, you're going to want to check these out. Now, of course, the first one that I'm showing you here, this one is former, not only CSX, but former Family Lines locomotive. And you can just barely make out the paint scheme here on that model. That's not the only one we're doing, though. We're also going to be doing this one, obviously a former CSX. This was one of their earlier paint schemes, much further back in time before the YN2s and the YN3s. And if you look carefully, we're trying to keep that authenticity going. If you look, the CSX is barely legible. It's all weather beaten out. Now, lease units like this, they're seen throughout the country, and especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, with all the mega mergers that had just happened. A lot of railroads were really power hungry. So if you're modeling early BNSF, Santa Fe, any of those class ones, these are perfect stand-ins. You can throw these in there. Also, too, a lot of these found their way into smaller lines as well. So they're a good fit for anything. If you're a prototype modeler or if you want to do some freelancing, these would be some cool models to pick up. So this one here looks like Eerie Lackawanna. It was an Eerie Lackawanna at one point in its life. It's an interesting lineage of this locomotive, Eerie Lackawanna into Conrail, and then we all know what happened to Conrail, and we're offering these in the Norfolk Southern line. But Norfolk Southern actually took this locomotive, 1700, and they painted it, as you see right here, in 2015. And it's really cool because it gives you a chance to run pretty much a modern era locomotive with a throwback paint scheme. And I don't know about you guys, but I always thought the Eerie Lackawanna paint scheme was a really nice, tidy, distinguished paint scheme. Really looks nice with the maroon and the yellow over the gray. Now, one thing I do want to mention is when we first announced this at the beginning of the month, the artwork was different. We had some folks contact us and say, hey, it looks great, but there's some things that you need to fine tune. And we thank those folks that contacted us and worked with our developers. And here you can see the updated artwork. And this is, again, where, we're thankful we got modelers like you guys that, say, hey, you know what, this is great, but could you fix this? And we like to work with folks that have the historical data to back this up. We will work with anybody as long as you've got the data to back it up. We're willing to listen and update as needed. So thank you to the fans out there that gave us the information that our developers needed to make an accurate model. So here it is from the previous run, and this is technically not the same locomotive. This was a former Eerie Lackawanna, different number, 6662. That's the Conrail number. But it gives you an idea of the level of detail that these Genesis models have, and it'll give you an idea of what the paint looks like in real time. I don't know about you, but it's always easier to see an actual model than just a line art. Now, the line art is really nice, and it does convey a story, but I think it helps you guys a little bit, especially anybody that's newer coming to the broadcast, and maybe you're not as familiar with Athearn. This is a good way for you to see what they're like. Now, once again, the one that we're announcing for this month is the Norfolk Southern Heritage Unit painted in 2015. And that is this unit right here, 1700. Now, of course, we're going to do Norfolk Southern. And again, I say it every time on this broadcast, Norfolk Southern is extremely popular with you guys. Union Pacific has always been a strong seller. Southern Pacific's always been a strong seller. But lately, we're seeing a lot more guys asking for Norfolk Southern, and that's why we wanted to offer this again. Now, we have offered these in Norfolk Southern in the past, but it's been a little bit, all the way back to 2009. So here's some great options for you. If you're new to the world of model railroading and you really like Norfolk Southern and you want to get a Norfolk Southern SD45-2, here's your chance. You can pre-order one now. Maybe you're somebody that's been in the game a little bit longer and for whatever reason you missed this release back in 2009. That means they probably would have come into hobby shops around 2010, which is over 12 years ago now, believe it or not. If you missed that initial run, here you go. You can pick up this run now. Now, there's even a third person. If you picked up all of the originals from that run in 2009, we're actually filling the gaps up with this next run. Here's 1703. We're going to fill in the gaps, so you'll have even more Norfolk Southern power as far as SD45-2s. So hopefully that'll help you Norfolk Southern guys out, because I know you guys are really happy when we come out with Norfolk Southern. Seaboard Coastline's another one that we have done in the past, but it's been a while. In fact, I've got a picture here all the way back to September 2009, so quite a while ago. Again, these would have been available in 2010. So if you missed out on that release back in 2010, go ahead and grab one of these now. You've got till the end of the month, Friday the 28th, to pre-order one of these with your shop. Now, there's one locomotive that I have not brought up yet, and I saved kind of the special one for last. There's one more Santa Fe locomotive that we are offering this month for pre-order, and the reason why we're doing it is because BNSF is actually restoring the actual unit. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about yet, I'll throw it up on the screen there. It's 5704. 5704 is really interesting. It was delivered to the Santa Fe in 74. It was painted in the bicentennial colors that you see here. It wasn't the only one. There was 3, 4 more, if I remember right. I'm going by my memory. But these were all painted in this striking red, white, and blue paint scheme. And, you know, just like anything else, these locomotives went into revenue service. They worked throughout the rest of the 1970s into the 80s, eventually receiving a more common yellow and blue Santa Fe paint scheme, all the way up to the merger. And up until a few years ago, a lot of these were still earning their keep, albeit probably more as a yard switcher now. Well, just recently, BNSF Railroad has selected 5704, taken it out of service, and currently it's being restored in its 1975, 1976 bicentennial paint scheme that you see here. I've got some pictures of the actual model. Now, BNSF is still working on this actual locomotive. We are working closely with a contact in the field so that we can maybe bring you alive with the revealing of this locomotive. But I'm pretty excited about this. The BNSF is one of my favorite railroads, and this was one of my favorite bicentennial locomotives. So whether you're a Santa Fe modeler, a BNSF modeler, or you simply like bicentennial locomotives, you're going to want to go ahead and pre-order these because they do tend to go fast. We have offered these in the past, and they typically sell out. Let's get some more views of the locomotive for you guys to see. So really cool locomotive. And like I said, it's being rebuilt and repainted right now. Now, this is a Genesis model, so it's going to have Genesis features and details. It's really a sharp paint scheme. And one of the things that I liked was how they incorporated their Santa Fe corporate scheme, the actual paint scheme, and merged it with the red, white, and blue. It was a really cool way they integrated the scheme with the different colors. So really cool. And I mean, check out all the detail, your rooftop detail. I'll zoom in on this. This is the kind of detail that in the past, many of us would spend hours upon hours drilling number 80 holes and applying all the lift rings and all of the grab irons and all of that piping, the windshield wipers, all of that. This is all done for you now. The only thing you have to do is if you buy the sound DCC version with the Tsunami 2 is program it, or you can also get it without the decoder and either run it as a DC unit or with the decoder of your choice. So really cool locomotive, really excited about this release. In fact, I think I've got one here. Let's see what I've got here. Now this one is actually my personal locomotive. I had to get one of these. I've always been a fan of the bicentennials. Let me see if we get some sound here for you. So just a beautiful locomotive. A little bit too big for my layout, but I had to buy it. Just a cool looking locomotive. Real nice, smooth running locomotive. I'd run it a little further, but I've got some more surprises for you. So you'll see what's occupying the block. So the cool thing is this is a current day locomotive. Current day locomotive, and it's going to be fully restored as it was. And when BNSF is done with it, they're going to donate it to the Southern California Railway Museum in Paris, California. And that's really cool. So that's going to definitely stand out in that museum's collection. And just thinking a year from now, you can go to that museum and see this actual unit, 5704. So really cool. A shout out to BNSF Rail. Really cool that you're doing that. And, there's some more that I got to tell you too, because we're working with Train World. Let's see, let me bring this back up. We're working with Tony Cook and Train World. We're going to be doing a special live feed coming up. Now, this is going to be a virtual event, and this is going to be Saturday, January 22nd, 8 p.m. for you guys on the East Coast, 7 o'clock p.m. Central for Midwest, and earlier for you folks at Pacific and Mountain Times. This is going to be a great event, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with Tony Cook. He is a wealth of information. I assure you that Tony's probably going to share some great pictures from the Kevin U. Daily collection. And we're going to talk specifically about this locomotive. We're going to talk about what's being done to it and pretty much kind of its storied past. It's a really cool little bit of history. So again, if you're a Santa Fe fan or just a bicentennial fan, you're going to want to check out this episode. That's January the 22nd. It's a Saturday, and it's going to start at 7 o'clock Central Time. And that's myself, Tony Cook, and Ken Bianco Jr. of Train World. And if you're familiar with Train World, they do a great job with these special runs like this. So be sure to check that out. It's always a good time. When the three of us get together and talk trains, it's a great time. And I know Ken's going to have some of you guys that are watching, if you want to ask questions or participate, I'm sure that can be arranged. So check that out. Saturday, January 22nd, 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern. So before I move on, I want to take a look at your comments, your questions, anything of that nature, because again, I've said it here before, I'll say it again. When I'm flipping through all those screens, I don't always get your comments. So let's see what's going on in the world. Wayne says, Jim, do both strobes flash on both sides of the cab? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. That is function number 5 if you have the Tsunami decoder. Train Addict says, that's nice. Yeah, I would agree. I don't have a lot of Santa Fe and HO. I have a lot of it in N scale, but not HO, and I had to pick that one up. Let's see. Harold says, paint job is beautiful. Yeah, it really is. Whoever designed that paint scheme did a really great job. Some of those, honestly, some of those paint schemes, if you ever get a chance, there's some great books out there on bicentennial units. Just about every railroad did a bicentennial unit for the 200th anniversary or birthday of the United States. And, some of those kind of dated really quickly. Some of them were, frankly, kind of gaudy. But Santa Fe had a really, really proper paint scheme. I think it was really nice. Bradley's got an interesting comment. He says, pre-SPSF paint scheme, almost the same pattern. Yeah, you're right. If you look closely at the way the blue up here is and how it's separating the red. Yeah, it kind of reminiscent of that. I can see that. BNSF 9708 says he hasn't pre-ordered it yet, but he plans to. Yeah, with a name like that, I hope you do, because technically it's now a BNSF locomotive, or at least until it's done, and then it goes to California. Tom's comment, he says, both Santa Fe 5704 and Rock Island 652 were bicentennial units and are still with us. Yeah. Price. So our prices that we list on our website, they are suggested manufacturer retail. Your price will differ depending on your shop. So contact the local hobby shop that you deal with for pre-orders, or your online dealer, whichever you prefer, and they can get the price for you. Everything that we're going to show is pretty much the retail price. All right, a lot of good comments on the... Now, Randall has just jogged my memory, and I'm going to put it up here. He says, BNSF 9708, BNSF still has a couple of SD45-2s, but they've been rebuilt into SD40-2Rs, essentially an SD40-2 and an SD45-2 body. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that build program, and a lot of them now are trimmer units, or being used in a yard, which is just still seems odd to me. All right, looks like you guys really like the that locomotive. Yeah. So these SD45-2s, they run great. The stuff that we're showing you today, it's a great mixture of modern, I mean, as in not even finished yet modern, all the way back to the 1970s. So that is something that you're going to want to look into no matter what you're modeling or what era. We've got a little bit of something for you. Dawson's got a comment for us. Says, I have several of the Athearn Genesis SD45-2s. Most are Eerie Lackawanna and CSX, and I love them. They run well, they pull good, they have the original Tsunami decoders and still running strong. Well, that's good, Dawson. Good to hear that. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that, as an Athearn employee, we like to hear that, because, again, there's a large percentage of us that work here are model railroaders, so... Okay, so let's go on to the next thing that we've got. I'm going to see what's next in our pile of goodies tonight. So Genesis acid tank cars. Now, these are just phenomenal tank cars. The amount of detail these guys have, all that piping is there, and it's really delicate. These are the perfect model for your home layout. Now, you might be one of those folks that's like me. You don't have a lot of room for a layout, and this is where these Genesis tank cars shine. You can spend a lot of time in a really nice small layout and spend more time on the details, and then when you would add a Genesis freight car such as this tank car, it just takes it to another level. Now, I realize there's a lot of guys out there that like to take the roundhouse or the ready to roll, kind of add to them, and that's fine. There's all kinds of different freight cars that we offer for all different types of modelers. But these Genesis cars, if you didn't want to do that and you had an operating session coming up and you needed an acid tank car, these are going to be perfect for that. And we're offering them in different versions, different paint schemes. So the first one we have here, this is a 2004 Era OCC tank car. And these are pretty common. You'll see these throughout the United States and Canada. But if you're modeling 2004 on up, these are the perfect car for that. Likewise, if you are wanting to do 2006, a little bit newer, not much newer. Here's the GATX version. And the GATX version, that's 2006 on up. And again, both of those freight cars can be used together. We're offering these in 3 different road numbers, so they're not just the one paint scheme you see here. Each paint scheme I'm going to show you, you've got your option of having 3 different road numbers. Now, I hear it all the time. The guys out here in the back, you're saying, where are the 90s? We want stuff from the 90s. We heard you. We're going to give you cars from the 90s. The first one that we've got is the service-driven GATX. This is square right into the 1990s. This is perfect for you guys. Again, 3 different road numbers. If you remember rail fanning in the 90s, you probably saw more than one of these. They were real common at one time. Now, I've also got another version. It's a GATX as well. And this is from 1991 all the way up to 2000s. Now, take a look at the detail that gets put on a Genesis car. It's more than just the added on details, but look at all the warning stickers that we have on here. These decals replicate all of those informational, the placards, all of that. Now, again, you're probably thinking, well, that's a line art. I mean, you can do whatever you want with line art. These are the actual things that we tell the factory to put on our models, and they always oblige. So 1970s era, so maybe you just picked up a couple of those Billboard Santa Fe SD45-2s. Well, here you go. This is for 1976 on up. Very common. The lettering matches that era of freight car stenciling, and perfect. So we've got something for the 2000s, the 90s, and the 70s, and you can even, with some updating, bring these into the 80s. Again, these all have 3 different road numbers, so you can mix and match if you like, or you can just build up your industrial. And, you know, etch metal walkways. The detail on these guys is amazing. In fact, I think I've got a picture of one from the last run. Here we go. So etch metal walkways. Let's zoom in on this. The pictures don't always do it justice. That's all finely done so that everything looks in proportion and scale. Remember those stencils I was telling you about? All that information's right there. The placard, everything. It's kind of hard to read because I've zoomed in so far. But just look at the detail on these guys. We'll zoom out a little bit so you can see that. Of course, metal wheel sets. That's a given. And one of the things that the developers do is they ensure that they have the correct brake system appropriate to the actual model. They're not all just the same brake system slapped onto the same car, painted in different colors. They're actually appropriate to the prototype. The etch metal walkways, that's another great feature. And the thing that I just am always amazed about is the actual stenciling to these. Not only are they appropriate for the era, but they're legible, which is just amazing. So this one was from November 2019, very similar to what we're offering. The current run that I've showed you tonight, these are available until the 28th. You can pre-order these right up until Friday the 28th. And with, you know, 2000s era, 90s era, 70s era, there's a little bit of something for everybody for the more modern era modeling. And like I said, if you've got a small switching layout, these cars really stand out, especially if you follow some of the trends of some of the layouts that set up a little bit higher, almost eye level. Man, they look great. So they photograph really well. They'll make your scratch built buildings look really good. Definitely a neat model. All right, so before I go on, let's see. Michael approves. He says, well-detailed car. Can't thank you guys enough, nor can I get enough of them. Well, that's good, Michael. I'm glad you like them. Tom, Athearn micro printing is legible with magnification. If your eyes are like mine, yeah, you do need magnification. But if you're like me and you've got optivisors, you can read these labels. It's amazing. Eugene likes the details of the acid tank cars. Yeah, really. All right. Looks like late night model railroading. I know he's working on a new project. He says, yes, that's exactly the era I'm looking to build up rail cars for. Well, cool. I'll have to check out your progress on your on your switching layout. All right, let's see what else we've got, and then we'll move on to the next. Train addicts really liking these. All right. Okay, so let's see what we've got coming up next. So we've got more than Genesis. You know, really our ready-to-roll line of freight cars and even locomotives continue to be really good sellers. The ready-to-roll freight cars are the perfect balance for most people of really nicely detailed, accurate paint schemes, but not over-the-top detail, and just all-around good runners. They have really enough detail to please most modelers. Unless you're a very specific prototype modeler, these work great for prototype operations, the club layout, modular layouts that go to shows on display and such. And so we're doing the 4700 covered hoppers again. Very popular. So we're offering them in singles. We're offering them, now pay attention, we're offering them in 2 singles each. So this freight car you see here, there's 2 road numbers if you buy them as single freight cars. But we're also offering them as a 3-car set, which is really cool because that allows you to really build up your fleet. And I know out here in the Midwest, a lot of guys that model Fremo HO, there's a lot of guys that do grain trains, and these are perfect for that. Now this Arthur Farmersville Elevator Company, this is perfect for the 1980 era. These are set squarely in the 1980s, and we're going to be showing some other cars from the 80s and 90s, and even some from earlier than that. But these guys here, once again, they're available in 2 different numbers because they're sold as a single. So it's 2 singles, and then there's also the 3-pack. Now, one thing to remember too is if you buy the 3-pack, there is a savings in the cost. So talk to your dealer and ask them what the price is on the 3-car set, because we did work on that to give you a little bit of savings, and we know you guys like to run grain trains. So here's FMC, and ironically, that's who made these. Food Machine Corporation. This one here is based on a model from 1987. So it's very possible that these would have been running around probably even up into the early 2000s. Once again, we're offering that as a single, 2 different singles, 2 different road numbers as a single freight car, and then the 3-pack. It's real easy to build that grain train. Okay, so it depends on who you are, where you're from. If you're from the West Coast, they might say Clem. If you're from the East Coast, you might say Clem. If you're from the Midwest, it's Clemmy. So out of all of those, somewhere in there, I probably said the right word. It just depends. And it just depends on where I'm at in the country. I've seen these in real life, and rail fans call them Clem, Clemmy. But these were real common. This is a version that would have been common in the 1990s. And I can attest to that. Being in Illinois in the late 90s into the early 2000s, these were all over the place. And it seemed like you couldn't throw a stick without hitting one of these things. Now, by this era in the 1990s, they were redone for Chicago Northwestern. So these are part of our Prime for Grime. So that pink isn't quite as vibrant as it once was. It's a little bit more muted. And you can see here we've got the patch, kind of a primer gray patch. And this is the stuff that you guys that are modeling the 90s, you've been asking for this. As well, the 3-pack is available, and that too is part of the Prime for Grime. Here's the Pro car. Now this is a cool car, And this is kind of, remember I said we're going to kind of go back a little bit. This goes all the way back to 1973 when these cars are relatively new. Now the Pro Car, these are as delivered 1973, can be used throughout the 1970s. And again, these are available as 2 different singles as well as a 3-pack. Now, sticking with our 1970s theme, 1973, and I love these, the Value High Supply, Fremont, Nebraska. I'd say that if you live in Nebraska, you'd have to buy these just because of your states on there. But these are cool. You know, this green paint scheme. I was not real familiar with these. We'll talk a little bit more about these in depth in a coming special. But really cool. These are as they appeared in 1973, but they could be used throughout the 1970s for you modelers of the 1970s. And available in 2 singles as well as a 3-pack. So again, all of these cars that I've showed you, as well as the locomotives, the SD45-2s, these are available for pre-order until Friday, January 28th, which pretty soon, January is going to be halfway over. All right. So, see if we've got any questions on the covered hoppers. Oh, let's see. Robert says, yep, I got to have those Clemmies. I'm going to say Clemmy. I heard somebody say Clemmy. So Michael says he's from the east, and I always thought it was Clemmy, LOL. Okay, so I guess how far east? I don't know. Clemmy, Terry LaFrance has spoken, and he says Clem-E. I will defer to Terry. Terry is a wealth of knowledge. All right, what else have we got? Any unpainted models? Not this month. We did do the SW1500s last month in on deck. So if you didn't pre-order one of those, you're going to have to watch next December. Watch your hobby dealer, because that was one that you guys requested. Okay. So a couple of more things to share with you guys tonight, and then I've got some goodies to show you. Oh, you know what? I didn't even show you the really cool picture I've got of these. There it is. How many guys, if you're not familiar with these, here's one that we released in July of 2020. And this was the non-Prime for Grime one. This was the original owner. Check out the detail on these. Great cars. And who doesn't like grain trains? I mean, these are just great models. Metal etched walkways. Nice sharp printing. Really neat. And I know there's always someone that says, well, you know, I really wish you'd go back to the blue box era. Have you looked at a blue box era lately? I mean, they're nice. Don't get me wrong. I've got plenty of blue box stuff on my layout, but these really spoil you. The printing alone on these is light years ahead of what we were doing 25 years ago. These are just so much better. Just out of the box, they're ready to go, but a little bit of weathering. They're ready for your revenue service. I really like these cars. All right, so like I said, I've got a couple of little things I wanted to share with you guys before we go on to the neat stuff. And lately, there's been some questions about parts. Now, you'll remember it's been almost a year now. We've moved our parts service and our repair service from California. We moved here to Central Illinois. And I'm happy to say, I've been back there a couple of times and looks like stuff is up to speed. Everything is running smoothly. The guys are working on stuff. They're answering your emails. But we have had a few folks contact us and say, hey, you know what? I sent you guys an email and I never got a response. And so I did a little investigating. And I talked to the guys down in service, and they're like, well, we're getting all the emails. We're checking them out. And then we come to find out that somehow perhaps the wrong email's been given. So I'm going to show something with you guys. And if you need to get in touch with our service department for parts on your locomotive, here it is. Now it's athernhelp@horizonhobby.com. Now, one of the things that I can't stress enough, okay, is try to give in your email as much information as you can. If it's a new locomotive, say, hey, this is a Genesis 2.0 SD70 ACU, and I need, and then put in the part. Every time you buy a new locomotive, it's going to come with that schematic. There'll be a part number on there, but be descriptive. Let our guys know exactly what it is you're looking for. And in some cases, we're going to want to know what the quantity is, the color, things of that nature. So be as specific as possible. That way it helps the service center out that much better to fulfill the request. So again, athernhelp@horizonhobby.com. Just go ahead and give them an email. Now, one thing too is we've got guys monitoring that email. Don't think if you don't get a response right away, we're not working on it. We are working on it. We just get so many different emails throughout the different email systems that come through that our guys are busy answering those emails and taking care of those parts requests. So don't be surprised if it might take a little bit before you hear from us, but be sure that we are hearing from you. So that's the email you want to use. Don't use any other email for a parts request. It's athernhelp@horizonhobby.com. Likewise, if you're sitting here tonight and you're watching this live stream and you're enjoying everything you're seeing, but you're saying, you know what, Jim? I'd really like to see those SD45-2s in Conrail. Or I'd really like to see that covered hopper in another different road. Or maybe I'd like to see something new entirely. And we are very open to that kind of stuff. Our projects and our road name selection is based on your input. And you can go to Athern Product Suggestions at athern.com. Now, that's our email that goes directly to the ear of our developers. Now, one thing I want to mention, you can send in an email to that address requesting what it is you would like. But again, since we get so many emails on a daily basis, we simply don't have time to respond to each and every email. If you have prototype information you're willing to share with us, please let us know in the body of your email. And when the time is appropriate, one of our developers will reach out to you. That has happened more than once. And just like the SD45-2s we talked about earlier, if it wasn't for our fellow modelers, we wouldn't have gotten the information that we got. So we thank you for that. So full house, I mean, what possibly else can you show? We've already gone over a little bit. Let's see if I can do some rearranging here. Reach behind the magic wall. I'll put that down here. Let's see what I've got here. I'm going to be watching you, watching some comments while I get the next item up. Let's see. I'm going to bring up another loco for you. Oh, there we go. Now, what I'm about to show you is going to be in your dealer stores real soon. Comes crawling up to the, I hear it. That's not what I wanted. I know what I wanted. Hold on. Let's try this again. Select. Now, somebody last week had requested to show a -9 in the BNSF. And let's see if I can get that guy up here. You guys are wondering, what is he doing back there? Well, trying to get it just right in the camera angle for you. There we go. It's kind of a big locomotive, so. All right. So somebody had, like I said, requested that, hey, can you show a new Genesis 2.0-9 in BNSF? And I was like, why not? So here we go. Roll that beautiful BNSF footage. Heritage 1, number 1082. I'm sure it's up for debate, but to me, I always love the Heritage 1 paint scheme the most. Really kind of harkens back to that great Northern era. And so here's 1082. This is Genesis 2.0. You're going to have all those lighting features. Looks like I've got my ditch lights on. It's hard to tell in the studio because the studio lights are so bright. Look carefully. You can see I'm turning on and off the number boards. And neat stuff. So these are in your hobby shop now. If you pre-ordered these last year, you probably have one of these on your layout already. If you're like me and you like the Heritage ones. And yeah, really cool. Maybe next week, depending on how time goes, I'll bring in a Heritage 2. But yeah, really cool. So I'm sure there's some guys out there saying, man, more 6-axle stuff. Well, if you're modeling modern day stuff, I mean, 6-axle is kind of part of the equation. But well, maybe you were looking for something a little bit smaller, 4-axle, maybe something from the 70s. These have not hit hobby shop stores' shelves yet, but they will be probably towards the end of January, maybe sooner. Let me bring our next guest on stage here. Let's see. All right, bring him forward. People are probably guessing, what is he bringing on board? Any guesses? It's a 4-axle unit. One of the cooler paint schemes from the Northeast, in my opinion, if that gives you a hint. Not a GP50. GP9, oh, Chris is very close. He knows that the GP9s are close. GP40-2, very close. Okay, so here we go. GP39-2s. So, like I was saying, probably one of the cooler, prettiest paint schemes in the on the East Coast at the time, the D&H. Just a beautiful paint scheme. We announced these last year, and these will be coming to you soon. So if you pre-ordered these, they're going to be here probably the end of January, maybe even sooner. So definitely keep your eyes open for those. Zach, I will give you props. Yeah, the main central is definitely, in the 70s anyways, was one of the cool paint schemes on the East. I have more GP39-2s than I can wave a stick at from Mathern, but I love them all. Yeah, they're a great locomotive, especially for a layout like yours. I mean, if you're doing industrial switching in a small area, these are great. I mean, these are perfect for that. I agree. I definitely agree. You know, D&H had a bicentennial unit too. They kind of used their same paint scheme and changed the colors, but such a classy paint scheme. I'm not ashamed to admit that I cried when Guilford bought them out. Thank goodness that didn't last long. So yeah, these are also available in the Reading. We did the Reading as well, and then we did the Reading former Reading. So in the Prime for Grime, Lefty says, "I like Guilford." I know. Hard to believe that Guilford's kind of a fallen flag now. Spent a lot of time rail fanning gray and orange Guilford units all around Deerfield and Nashua. And I kind of like the Pan Am paint scheme, but it looks like that's going to become CSX. All right, so we ran extra long tonight, but I wanted to show you guys that stuff. We had that request last week to show the BNSF -9s, and just really cool. This is one of those times where there's just so much cool stuff, it's hard to pick your favorite. But let's go ahead and let me give a chance for some of you guys to ask some questions, and then we'll pull the pin on this episode. So let's see what we've got out there. Lefty says he sees Guilford all the time and Pan Am now. Yeah. Get your pictures now. I'm sure the people that saw Penn Central back in the day didn't think it was worth it. Now they kind of wish they had. Nick, he says, "Hey, Jim, can you give us any insight and whether John and Janik have any Amtrak Viewliners in the works? Would make nice 4 to 5 car sets like the Surfliner cars, especially in both Viewliner 1 and 2 paint schemes." I agree, Nick. I don't really have any insight because usually when John and Janik see me, they lock the door. They're like, "No, Jim, you've got too many things that you want us to do." But knowing those guys and knowing how resourceful they are, we'll probably hear from them at some point about what they're working on. And that doesn't seem too far removed from what they'd be doing. In fact, I think John was telling me he was going to have a surprise for us here in about another month or so. Brad, there's a question I want to grab since you took the time to write it. Brad's asking when the dual cube speakers will be available again. We show them on our website, and there's some delays. Whenever there's a to be determined date, that means we're having a shipping delay. We're still having some shipping delays. Remember, there's a few locomotives that a lot of people pre-ordered that still haven't made it here yet. They're in the process. So they will get here, but they're going to be a little bit later. And usually when you see TBD or to be determined, that means we don't have enough accurate data to actually put a date in there. So I know it's frustrating, especially if you got a project on the workbench, but bear with us. We're hoping that the shipping thing starts to clear up a little bit more as we go into winter and into spring. Let's see. David Hunter. When will the GP9 locomotives become available at hobby shops? I'm looking forward to seeing the TH&B Jeeps. David, you're not going to be disappointed. We will probably see those. I was really hoping to see those in hobby shops before the Amherst show. Not quite so sure now. There might be a delay on those as well, but they are still saying late January. So let's hope in another couple of weeks. But don't worry, I'll share some of those GP9s on the show. They are absolutely beautiful. Brad says, more Canadian stuff, please. Not a problem. So John's got a laundry list of really good stuff. Yeah, John, if I were you, I would definitely get in touch by going to our product suggestions. If you haven't already, you might have already. But please go to athearn.com, contact us, and hit that product suggestion email. And let the guys know. It sounds like you've got some information there you may be willing to share if we can make the right models for you. So definitely give us a shout out. There's always a possibility, and that's one of the things that can be sometimes a struggle. We'll come out with a new model, and it's easy to do that first run, but we want to make sure that we can keep doing that model in subsequent runs of road names that you guys are looking for. So if you've got information on that, please share. We got to vote for CF7s, please and thank you. Yeah, we get a lot of comments on that. I don't know of any plans in the immediate future for that, but it's something that we do hear about. Okay. Gerald wants to know, any plans for short lines in Maine? Again, it's usually dependent on what we're going to announce and what kind of information we've got. If you've got some information on some of those main short lines that you'd be willing to share and see a model produced in the future, like I said, just give us an email at product suggestions, Athearn product suggestions at athearn.com. It's a lot of cool little railroads up in Maine. So John says he has. Okay, good. And like I said, John, you're not going to get a response every time just because there's so many of those emails that come in. But those are kept in a database. And when the time comes and the developers have thought, you know what, it's time to maybe run one of these, they'll look at your information and contact you if necessary. So thank you for that. All right, I got time for maybe 2 more questions. And while I'm looking at questions, I'm sure Montana Rail Link fans out there, you probably already know, you've heard the news. BNSF, of course, has purchased Montana Rail Link. Kind of a shame. I always liked Montana Rail Link. It was a cool railroad. And of course, we've done Montana Rail Link. And yeah. But interesting times. Let's see. A lot of good comments. I'm just looking to see if there's a question that I can answer while I've got you guys. Yeah, a lot of you guys have heard about the Montana Rail Link. A lot of suggestions. Okay, so it looks like pretty much just comments on there. I think I saw one question up here. Aha, I caught you, JD. I'm not ignoring you. I just missed you. So you're looking for Norfolk Southern GP38-2s and GP60s. Yeah, and I remember Janik saying it would be a good. We haven't done Norfolk Southern 38-2s in a while, so put in, shoot us an email. I don't know what version of Norfolk Southern paint scheme. You're looking for the Horsehead paint scheme. Actually, 38-2s in Norfolk Southern would be really cool. That's my vote. We see them occasionally in Decatur, kind of running around just doing odd jobs. So I got you. I didn't ignore you. I found you. One more. Will there be any surprise announcements soon? Not real soon, but we're working on something. No, Jonathan, I did not know that. I did not see that. I see your question or your comment about CP. Nick, I'm going to throw you up there because I would agree. And please, for my sake anyways, put that in our product suggestions email because I'm 100% behind you on this. BNSF H1 GP38-2s would be great as well. Yeah, it really has. When I first moved to Illinois, BNSF was brand new, and so I was getting mainly patch Santa Fe and Cascade Green locomotives, but once in a while I'd see a Heritage One, especially in a 4-axle, was really cool. And yeah, good comment. The 38-2s, they just sell really well, and I like them because they're great for everything from 1970s to 80s mainline service all the way to branch and industrial switching. So. And Jacob says, don't forget about the BNSF H1 GP9s. Yeah. 1626, if I remember right. With torpedo tubes. That would be cool. All right. Well, we've had a great night. I want to thank everybody for coming on board. Thanks for sharing some time with me. We had a lot of neat trains here in the studio, a lot of neat locomotives. So like I said, the first one that I showed you, the SD45-2, that is available for pre-order until Friday the 28th. The next one that I showed you, the Genesis -9, the Genesis 2.0-9 in BNSF, they are in hobby shops right now. If you pre-ordered, you probably even have one on your layout right now. And then the last locomotive that I showed you, the GP39-2s, they will be arriving here soon. I'm hoping by the end of January, those will be in. So if you haven't heard from your dealer and you pre-ordered one of these, you'll probably be hearing from him soon. A couple other things too before I go. Don't forget, all the shows that we do live, they get archived. They go over to our YouTube channel. You can check out the Athearn YouTube channel and like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for notifications of new videos. And another exciting thing that we're going to be launching this month, details will be coming shortly, but we're going to start doing the Athearn Extra. The Athearn Extra is about an hour-long presentation of everything that we talk about, but more in detail. So we'll be sharing prototype pictures of the actual locomotives that we've modeled. We'll be talking to some guests within the industry. Tony Cook is going to come on board for our first broadcast. So I'm really looking forward to that because I know he's got some great prototype pictures to share with us and great storyteller as well. Plus, I'll have some other surprise guests that will come on occasionally. We'll also have John and Janet come on when they've got some neat news to tell you. So it's a great time. And according to our survey that went out, it's going to take place on a Friday at 7 o'clock. So it's perfect. You'll be home from work. You can get that beverage of your choice, sit down at the workbench and join us while we talk to you about all that's going on this month at Athearn. Something else I want to remind you about is you can now find us not only on Facebook or Instagram, but we are on TikTok as well. So if any one of those social media genres interests you, be sure to go ahead and like any one of those and follow us there. We are adding more videos here shortly to TikTok, and happy to do it. Until next time, I want everybody out there to be happy, be healthy, be safe, do some good modeling, and above all, until next time, high greens, everybody. Take care.